sacred idea of oneness. The idea here that man, nature, God, the cosmos, energy, we're all interconnected, we're all interrelated, interdependent, there's a wholeness. And so if that truly is the dominant worldview, the other worldview, besides the biblical worldview that says no, it's not one. In fact, God is transcendent, exalted beyond the created order. God stands apart from the universe. He's representing the idea of two, God and then all the rest. But however, if that oneness concept is a dominant worldview that underscores all ancient myths and modern myths, well then we should see it being the core to drive us towards a one world, one global ideal. And that comes through, again, with world federalism on the political side. It comes through with global citizenship education through UNESCO. It comes through with the cultural side, the social side, and that's the transformational festivals we'll be talking about. How many are in existence is an interesting question. There are potentially hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe even upwards of 1,000 of these events around the world. The majority of them in North America and in Europe. And it is remarkable how many exist even in places like Latin America. You find them in Australia, New Zealand. It is truly a global phenomena, a social, spiritual, communal phenomena that brings together the idea of celebration. And but the bottom line is this: they are celebrating. It is a celebration, a teaching and a preaching of oneness through art, through music, through dance, literally again through the celebratory acts. And we've always had music, we've always had party, we've always had celebration, we've always had community. But what we're seeing now is the incorporation of these components into a very specific way of looking at the world around us and the future that we wish to achieve. And that's one thing that's very important with transformational festivals. These are viewed as models, very short-term experimental models of what the future is that we wish to achieve, the world that we want to participate in and experience. And all of these parts and pieces come together within the transformational cultural movement, be it festivals or even just transformational events, concert-oriented with a strong theme of oneness. And Tomorrowland and Tomorrow World represent that side, and the other, you could almost call it the swing of the pendulum, openly pagan gatherings and pagan celebrations. Some of them have been around for a long time. And in the middle of all this, you have the Transformational Festival itself, things like Burning Man, the Azora Festival, Boom. You have a few in the UK as well, which incorporates music, which incorporates workshops, lectures, yoga, it incorporates sustainability, the green movement, and a lot of dance and music, big art installations, all of this to bring about an experience of a new reality, a new way of looking at the world. And so you've got a full spectrum and a nuance that you find within this movement. Even the stages for some of these events are phenomenal constructions of art. Tomorrowland and Glastonbury's had some phenomenal stage work, where the stage itself becomes an integral part of the experience of transformation, where you feel that you are in another world, you're in another reality, that you're living and experiencing and breathing this new way of looking at the world and how you can model this together. And I give them kudos for recognizing the psychology and the way that humanity behaves, and how to bring about something that is very appealing, that brings you in and involves you in the event, the experiential part of it. They understand that very, very well. And that's what makes these events now different than the old concerts of yore, where you would just go and sit on a grassy field, listen to a band, and then go home. Now, you're part of it. You're experiencing it. You're feeling it. It's moving you. Here's 4 quotes just pulled from different individuals. These 4 quotes demonstrate that this is a new way of looking at the world, and that it is a utopian way of looking at the world, that this is somehow something that will alter your life individually and also collectively. Here they are. Here's the 4 quotes. Regarding transformational festivals, simply the most extraordinary spiritual and political and cultural thing that has ever happened to me. And of course, it completely affected the rest of my life. Here's another one. The experience of Burning Man was just so overwhelming and so powerful that it literally sent my life on a 90-degree turn from the direction it was heading, and I never looked back. Third, these festivals are really doorways to open a whole life-altering change. And finally, having the trance experience changes your life forever. I don't think there's any way you can see the world the same after you've been through that experience. It represents the fact that these events stir up the spiritual component of who you are, stirs you up to almost have a religious conversion type of experience, something that draws you in, and now you feel a spiritual connection to this, and it does change your reality. It does change your life. Some of them are very spontaneous. Others are more guided and more structured. Just to give you an example, in Burning Man, not only do they have a human effigy that they burn at the end of a week of bohemian living, but then the following day, on the Sunday, they burn a temple. And this temple becomes a lightning rod for spirituality, for a somber reflection of your life and purpose. And what's interesting is when the man burns at the end of the week, there is exuberance, there's excitement, there's fire dancers, fire drummers, fire virgins. It's pretty wild. Fire priests. It's an amazing display. On the Sunday, when they burn their sacred space, their temple, the place where organic rituals, interactive participation in spirituality have happened, sometimes in a very loose kind of way, other times in a more structured format. And when they burn the temple, it's quiet. It's sacred. It's somber. It's a solemn reflection of what's taking place. Another example is the festival entitled Lightning in a Bottle, which takes place in Southern California. About 15,000 people go to that. And it is noted for its sacred spaces, for its organic spirituality that emerges, and yet it still has a structured spiritual ritualistic component. It has its temple of consciousness established, and that becomes almost the lightning rod again to bring about a ritualistic experience, whether it is impromptu or whether it is organized. And so the ritualistic sacred element that comes through these transformational festivals is something that is very, very powerful. And it speaks also to the fact that we are not materialistic people. We are not living in a modernistic world of raw materialism where mankind is nothing more than a meat sack. We've rejected that. In fact, we're even rejecting postmodernism. Postmodernism, which gives the idea that we're not really sure of ourselves. There's no real framework upon which to hang our life upon. It's all questioning. It's all open. It's all relative. We're even replacing that now. And this is something that's very interesting within the Transformational Festival movement. Advocates for Transformational Festivals say, we're going beyond postmodern. We are now finding a framework. We're now finding a new grounding to place our lives into. And that's the sacred idea of oneness. And so what they're calling it is the era of re-enchantment. So we've gone from the spiritual, supernaturalistic worldview of Christianity, then to modernity, and secularism, then to postmodernism for the last 40 years. And now these transformational events, being the sharp edge of the spear, socially and culturally, are changing the way people look and say, okay, we're no longer postmodern, because now we have a framework, we have a grounding. We're re-enchanting the world. Cosmic humanism. This is really cosmic humanism, a blossoming of cosmic humanism, which is really nothing more than the New Age with various trappings. What is fascinating is that if you take a look at the old myths, the old pagan ideals, it is all about the one. It is all about mankind the divinities and nature being reflected in each other, also known as continuity. And that truly is the idea of oneness, that we are all somehow inseparable at the core level. We are all truly one. All pagan ideology, all pagan myth speaks to this in some way or another, and in a lot of various nuances. But the bottom line is this idea of continuity between the divinities, between mankind, and between nature. We are all part of this big chain of existence, this circle of existence. Whereas the worldview of biblical Christianity says, no, it's not. We're not all one. We're not becoming God-like in our capacity. Rather, there is a separation between the true God, the Creator, who is distinct and transcendent, versus the rest of the universe. But what's fascinating is when you're reading through some of the materials from these transformational events, many of the organizers recognize that, oh, this goes back to the idea of the Bacchanalian type festivals, the ancient mythological festivals. This takes us back to the pursuit of ancient wisdom literature and the ancient wisdom teachings. You hear this over and over again. So they themselves recognize they're not really giving us anything new. They're just reinventing the old alternative worldview of paganism, the old worldview of oneness, and putting it within a new box for a new generation. The music component is very, very important. But what is interesting is when you take a look at the whole spectrum of transformational festivals, while electronic dance music is the dominant feature in many of these events, in fact, the majority, I can point you to different festivals where there's folk music, even a cappella music. But when you take a look at some of those events that don't bring about simply EDM or electronic dance music, but incorporate other themes, what you see, though, is nevertheless the fact that the organizers are still preaching that this is still a modeling of an experience of oneness, and that we're now doing it not necessarily through the music, that's a part of it, but we're doing it through the fact that we are all coming together with that oneness in mind. We're coming together to intentionally experience that, whether it is through the music, specifically electronic dance music, or whether it is through the community love and the community, that organic community interaction that takes place. What we're seeing here, it is just simply finding a new way of modeling the ancient ritualistic concepts that have always underscored the pagan ideology, the pagan worldview. I was listening to one interview with an electronic dance music performer, a technician, and he was describing the role of electronic dance music in these festivals and how it brings together this new sense of reality, this new interconnectedness. But he said something interesting. He also said that you wouldn't experience this if you were just dancing and bobbing along to it in your bedroom individually. He says you're not going to have that same interconnection, that same sense of ritualistic contact one to the next. It has to be done in a group dynamic or in an immersive dynamic. And that's where the aspect of sacred art, visionary art, comes in. And that creates its own dynamic of where you are immersed within it. And Burning Man is the perfect example of immersive art, immersive artistic experience. Because you can go to Burning Man and not go to a single dance event, if you don't want to. But Burning Man really represents a place where visionary art and community comes together and creates a new reality, a new temporary reality. But it's the idea of here that you're not stepping away from it. You're not separate from it. You're not enjoying art for the sake of just enjoying it, learning from it, appreciating it. No, you are becoming it. And that's where the oneness aspect comes in, either through the music or through the art, through the sense of community, through the group rituals, the group sacred experiences, the group yoga. You are immersing yourself within the one. You're all now coming together.